All right, welcome to the first section wherein we're going to talk about Azure DevOps and we're going to compare it with few of the other CI/CD tools available in the market, like GitLab, GitHub, and many more. So before we get started with the demo, I just wanted to take you through my experience and what are the key factors which you should consider while choosing an Azure DevOps or any of the CI/CD tool which you want to select for your companies or clients. All right, so these tools kind of perform the same job. They all have the similar set of capabilities, but let's take a quick look and on a 30,000 feet overview what these tools actually stands when we put together these on a piece of paper, and how does the comparison looks like. So Azure DevOps provides an easy to use marketplace plugin extension which makes Azure DevOps extensively prevalent at key places in the user experience, specifically when you're coming from Microsoft background. So my take is, if you're coming from Microsoft background, be it using Active Directory or using Azure as your preferred cloud, go ahead and go with Azure DevOps without giving a second thought. Now there are other tools in the market as well, like GitHub, GitHub. If you're kind of writing some piece of code from college or anywhere, or you've been troubleshooting some of your problems and looking through some sort of solution, GitHub you might have come across. And it's started with an open source, has an enterprise version as well. It's always developer friendly to move back and forth between your public or private repository. So if you are, even if you're in college and want to get started, GitHub is highly recommended, and you quickly see all sort of codes over there. Clone those repositories or fork those repository, make your changes, push those changes onto GitHub as well. Now GitLab again is a private company. Recently they launched their IPOs also, and they are now listed in Nasdaq. Just to give you a brief overview about the company, what they are doing and how it is evolved over the time. It's world's again one of the top most CI/CD tool. Started with an open source initiative, but becomes from a comparatively different places and focus more on um, more of an open source platform rather than an enterprisey look, which is there in Azure DevOps. Does not provide all of the feature which Azure DevOps gives us, but lately they have been coming with a lot of features which we think for a DevOps or DevOps journey would be really beneficial. So there are primarily four areas wherein you can weigh your DevOps tool, be it Azure DevOps, GitLab, Bitbucket, GitHub, whatever tools you're selecting. The first thing you want to do is source code management and the continuous integration and delivery. Comparing three of them, GitHub is pretty much new, but it's still not proven how effective it is, but it's pretty easy to get started. GitHub Action is now primarily for your continuous integration and delivery. Azure DevOps, it's been there in the market from many years. Started as a VSTS product on premises and then got into cloud, named it as Azure DevOps, and it's a mature and feature-rich pipeline. Good integration with majority of the enterprise tooling, be it SAP or be it Salesforce. All of those integrations are there. So Azure DevOps kind of wins here because they integrate seamlessly with Git also. Now they have acquired GitHub also a couple of years back in 2018, which means a lot of features which are there in GitHub are now coming up in Azure DevOps also. So CI/CD is a important process. So if you're coming from again Microsoft background and you want to flawlessly deploy your application on Azure Kubernetes or virtual machine or Azure Web Apps, go ahead and choose um, Azure DevOps. Now, if you're coming from a FOSS background, open source, free and open source platform, could use GitHub also, because majority of the uh, features which you can try and test are kind of available without any cost in GitHub and GitLab as well. Never mind, those all those features are still available in Azure, so you can up to 5 users and up to certain limits. You can go ahead and perform the same. You use the same features in Azure DevOps as well. The next one is the project management. Now, if you're coming from a Kanban or Agile approach, you would like to have some sort of platform where you can host your projects, you can move your cards, work in a sprint, and all of these features are available now in three of them. Azure DevOps is the most mature and feature rich when it comes to aesthetics of your application, be it color coding of your card, customizing your boards. All of those features are now available in Azure DevOps, and a pretty mature and full featured product integrates with more than thousands of extension. GitHub, wherein if it's your code is in GitHub and you don't want to use any other tool, probably a good way to start off with as well. Code repositories, we all know that GitHub is started initially with the idea of saving all of your code and make sure that you kind of manage the entire trackability of your code. That's GitHub is unbeatable over there. However, with Azure DevOps, you already have a seamless integration with Git. So whatever commands you were to run on a GitHub platform, since the base is pretty much same, which is on built on top of Git, so you can use any of them as well. Community support, I believe that since GitHub is a bit older product and more of a developer open source friendly, community support is little more inclined towards GitHub. GitLab is still catching up, and Azure DevOps is still they have a since it's a proprietorship product, they have a dedicated support feature which you can raise a ticket with Microsoft folks, and they can always help you with your queries, whatever you have. A quick comparison, an apples to apples kind of comparison from between GitHub and Azure DevOps. So broken down into multiple different capability sets. The sources, the rating has been taken up from Upgrad. This is not my personal rating. So yeah, all of those ratings are coming from Upgrad. So they are broken down into multiple verticals, like sub capability set in terms of ease of use also, which one is pretty easier to use, since Azure DevOps as the proprietorship model, it kind of comes with its own flaws. GitHub is pretty uh, minimalistic product with very limited features. However, the features which are really really important, they have given you that. Community supports, as mentioned, GitHub takes care in category of by design, and the developer support is pretty awesome in GitHub. However, it is no less in Azure DevOps also. Release date, frequently all of the releases are coming from Azure DevOps. They're really trying to get you on top of cloud, so making sure that all of the features which they are releasing comes for cloud first or YAML based approach first, and then for GUI or any other approaches. Pricing and support, both are kind of three of the tools are kind of diverse significantly when it comes to pricing. Microsoft Azure DevOps comes with a free 5 users with unlimited number of private repositories. However, when you done with it, you kind of pay some fee for it. Same goes with GitHub as well. You pay kind of $7 a month for with unlimited repository, and for enterprise edition you kind of pay $21 per user per month. API and extensibility, GitHub offers a rich, well-documented REST API for interacting and manipulating various platforms. All APIs kind of occurs over HTTPS requests, which data sends and received in a JSON format. Azure DevOps also has a REST-based API built on top of OAuth and JSON, and all various formats are already available. So if you're coming from a background of .NET, C++, go ahead and do it with Azure DevOps because it gives you a first class support. So that's where it stands. Both are kind of neck to neck comparison, and there's no such tool which fits all your requirement. However, as you mentioned, if you're coming from a more of an enterprisey background, go ahead with Azure DevOps. Coming from a open source or FOSS enthusiasm, you can go ahead and do with GitHub or GitLab. So let me take a quick comparison between YAML, because over the next session, wherein we're going to build CI/CD platform for our infrastructure, we're going to do a lot of YAML. So this is a YAML screenshot from GitLab, and what I intend to do in this next couple of slides is how do all the YAMLs look like. So if you look at the YAML structure, it starts with the image name, wherein it pulls the image first, and then you, before the script, you want to run certain commands. And then you define the stages. Underneath the stages, you've got plan, apply, and destroy. And underneath each plan, you've got certain steps which you want to perform. The name should be GitLab .gitlab -ci.yaml. It's a reserved name for any of the CI/CD platform into GitLab. So if you want to get started, your YAML file should be named with the same, and it should be present in the root directory, and then you can simply start. So in the choose template, you can select templates also. So you don't want to write things from scratch. They are by default out of box templates already available, so you can use that and get started as well. Next one is, this is GitHub Actions. Now GitHub Action is a new feature, came a couple of years back specifically for your CI/CD platform. Works in a pretty same manner. It's the same YAML again, kept under GitHub workflow folder, and you can just give it any name and get started. So the first thing first, you define what's the name, what's the working directory, on which action do you want to run the CI/CD platform or YAML, and then you've got all the environment variables. And if you look at over here, you have got the stages. Now underneath stages, it has been bifurcated into multiple segments, and each segment runs different commands, which is init, plan, and apply. To define a variable, pretty same, dollars, and then curly braces, and then you define your variables right on top of it. The last one is, which this course is all about, is Azure DevOps. Pretty rich feature. Not only this, you have the GUI also, unlike other platforms wherein you don't have much of a GUI option available, only YAML based approach. So you can define your variables, and then you can define your images, the VM image, just like happened in GitLab and GitHub Actions as well, and then you start defining stages. So YAML, if you learn one YAML, one format, you kind of good for all of the CI/CD tools. All right, so that's about it from the introductory session, the comparison between three tools, just to give you a holistic approach, my viewpoint, which one you should choose upon, and how do you want to go about when it comes to CI/CD tool selection. I hope this was informative. Let's get into demos and hands-on session.